Hello, my name is Abby and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the 24 hours I spent in Rome as a wheelchair user. Now you may be thinking, why would you spend 24 hours in Rome when you don't even live there or anywhere near there? It's a 2.5-hour flight. My answer to you is, I went on a cruise around the Mediterranean, which I have got some footage of, so I will try and make a video of that. And I had 24 hours there before my flight home, and I tried to cram in as much as possible. So today I'm going to share with you my top 3 favourite things about Rome as a wheelchair user, and my 3 least favourite things about Rome as a wheelchair user. Let's get on with the video. Number 1, the tourist attractions are brilliant for access. We arrived at about 10 AM on day 1. So what we did on our first day, we went to the Vatican and saw the Sistine Chapel. And then after dinner, we went and saw the Trevi Fountain. And then the next morning we got up and we went to the Colosseum. You can get into the Vatican without having to queue as a wheelchair user. You get free entrance, and the same goes for the Sistine Chapel. Sistine Chapel, you actually go the back way, so you're always walking against people coming towards you, which is slightly frustrating because it's quite difficult to wheel when people are walking towards you, but you do get in there. It's a shorter route in there, and you get in there for free, so what more could you want? If you are wanting to go see the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, I would allow yourself at least 4 or 5 hours, because even though you get past the queues, inside it's really busy and it takes you a long time to see everything. There is a lot to see depending on what you want to see. We didn't even go around the Vatican Museum. We literally went into the cathedral and we literally went into the Sistine Chapel. That is it, and it still took us 4.5 hours. With the Sistine Chapel, when you come in through security and then you have to buy your tickets. It's free for wheelchair users and a carer, and anyone else with you will have to pay. For the Colosseum, don't waste your time in the big queue. If you go straight to the box office, they will give you tickets for free if you're in a wheelchair. At least that was my experience. We went on a Sunday, which meant that tickets were free anyway for the Colosseum. Don't wait in a long line. You head straight to the front of the queue where security is and you go straight in. Then if you think about the Colosseum, they actually have a lift. You can get up right to the top of the Colosseum, which is really awesome. So you can see everything that everyone else can see, and it's pretty damn cool. There's also wheelchair signs everywhere to show you where the wheelchair accessible routes are. Number 2. Accessible transport. Not all transport in Rome is accessible. The 2 of the ones I want to highlight are taxis and buses. So in Rome, there are the typical buses which run, the local buses which you can get on, which are usually really cheap, and they all have fold down ramps that come out and you can get on the bus nice and easily. The other type of bus you can get on is a hop on, hop off tour bus. These also have fold down ramps. You have to sit downstairs, which if you are going to be sitting downstairs, choose your brand of bus very carefully, because some of them do have window markings that block the view in a lot of places. But those all have ramps and they're all very wheelchair accessible. Taxis also are probably the most friendly taxi drivers I've ever seen in terms of letting you in a taxi that is not meant for wheelchair users. If you do have the ability like me to transfer out of your chair and into a taxi and get someone to put the taxi in the boot for you, then that is really something you can do very easily in Rome, because most of the taxis you can fit your wheelchair in whole if you have an active manual wheelchair like myself. If you're a power wheelchair user, there are a lot of taxis floating around that are accessible, so definitely make sure you check that out. The third thing I really loved about Rome is that most restaurants were really accessible. And you're thinking, this isn't normal for most places, but because it's a really hot country, a lot of the restaurants that you see in Rome will have outdoor seating. And I think we went to 4 restaurants while we were there, and every single one of them had outdoor seating of some sort which I could sit at. Now I am speaking from a manual wheelchair's point of view, so I'm a lot lower than a power wheelchair user, but for me there was always somewhere that I could sit outside. It's really great because you don't have to go inside everywhere. You may not be able to get access to a toilet, that is the only thing that I would say, but most places are going to have accessible outdoor seating where you can go and you can sit outdoors and go to pretty much any restaurant you like, which is a really awesome feature of Rome. Now these are 3 negative things that I found about Rome which I found difficult and challenging. One, there is no metro access. So in Rome, the metro system is pretty much completely inaccessible to wheelchair users. There may be a few stations that are, but it's not like London where you can just get on and off. It's very much inaccessible. So you do need to rely on either walking places, which in the summer when it's 40 degrees is not very practical. When I say walking, I mean wheeling. I'm not sure why I said walking. Wheeling places, but you could use power attachment like a tri-ride, but Rome is really big, so bear that in mind. Number 2, one thing I found in Rome which was slightly annoying is that Rome is made up of a few main streets but mainly back little streets, and those back little streets are often cobbled, which if you're in a manual wheelchair or even an electric wheelchair with small wheels at the front, that is really frustrating because your wheels are just going to get stuck. It's going to take you ages. It's going to be really bumpy on you. So the way I got my way around this was taking my tri-ride. You could take things like a freewheel or any other adaptation that lift your casters up, because that means you have a smoother ride. But even my tri-ride, it was still quite bumpy, but it got through the streets really well and also saved my arms a lot. Another thing that kind of relates to that is curbs. Curbs are quite few and far between, I found in Rome, and if they were, it was like a dropped curb. To me, that's not really a dropped curb. Now the third and final thing I found quite difficult about Rome was hotels. I found it difficult finding a hotel that was in a good location, was wheelchair accessible, was a decent price. We stayed there on a Friday night, so obviously the prices weren't going to be the best they could have been, but we did find one hotel that wasn't as central as we wanted, but it was not too expensive and it fitted my requirements accessibility wise rather well. It wasn't actually classed as an accessible hotel with an accessible room. It said the doorway was accessible, but it didn't say they had an accessible room. But we booked it. It was called the Camplus Roma Central. It was a decent hotel. It wasn't the best they ever stayed in. So as you come in, this is the front door. Everything is controlled by the aircon here and the little card holder here. Your living storage, you got a safe, you got a laundry bag, got a lovely sized bed, got a TV, all my bags are on here already. Get a full mirror, and you come through and you have a small little coffee table. They don't actually give you anything to make, but they give you like the cups and stuff, which are yellow. A lot of sockets everywhere, sockets. I guess this would be a second bed, but and then you come into the bathroom and it's not an accessible room, but it's really accessible. So it's got a sliding door here. You've got a sink with a mirror, which is probably a bit high because it's not a wheelchair room. You've got a bidet, a bin, a radiant emergency pull cord, a toilet, and a lovely shower. The only thing they don't have is a shower stool, so I'm going to actually have to ask for that. They did provide me with a plastic chair so I could shower, even though there wasn't one in there. And they gave me a really decent sized ground floor room. There are other options, but most of them are going to be big chains, and most of the time big chains charge a pretty big price in these places. So if you are looking for kind of a rustic Italian hotel, you're probably not going to find that in Rome with accessible rooms. Staying my 24 hours in Rome, I would definitely go back. It was, as a wheelchair user, life is going to be a bit more tricky when you're traveling, but for me, I really enjoyed it. It was a great experience, and it is now one of my favorite cities that I've ever been to. It has some of the best cuisine, some of the best attractions, and some of the loveliest people. But yeah, we loved it. Would definitely go back, and if you have any more places you want me to visit and review as accessibility, let me know. And if you've been to Rome, let me know in the comments. Tell me how you got on, tell me where you stayed, and I will see you guys in another video. Goodbye.